First we will check the rough idea on what a Python class method and what a Python static method. Then we will see some examples, probably one, as this will be a short live stream. So let's check this one. I already have one slide over there. So uh, this is a kind of overview, and I hope this will make much sense if we discuss this one in the last. But anyway, so for the class method, this method requires to have one class parameter and a static method doesn't. So just keep this one in mind. And then we can use this class method decorator for creating one class method, and the static method decorator for creating a static method. I will attach the screenshot of class method codes over there and the static one over here, so it will be easy for you to go through this one. So let's start first with the static method. So these static method and class methods, they all are basically related to how does classes and objects behave in Python. So let's suppose first we are creating one simple Python uh, yeah one simple Python class, and let's create something with the name of okay, we will create one calculator. So this will be class calculator. So generally when we define any class, what we do, we basically we define the constructor part. So for calculator, let's suppose we add something like define init, then we add self, and we will just add the name of calculator, and we will say self dot name is equals to name. So this one, it doesn't matter, we are just introducing this one for the sake of how mostly we create class in Python. Okay, now second we will create one method. So we will create something like define add. So this define add method, uh, what it can do. Okay, now let's tweak this calculator. Let's instead of taking name, let's change this one. We say like for any calculator, we are just for a particular calculator, this calculator only accepts two number, a and b, and we will say self dot a is equals to a, and we will say self dot b is equals to b. And now we are defining one add method, and what it will do, it will return, it will just return what we are having in the calculator constructor. So we will return something like self dot a plus self dot b. So we just added this one. Let's return this one. Okay, hope it works. Now let's create one calculator, calc1, and say it's a calculator, and let's pass two argument like 10, 15. And now if we run the its method like the add one. Okay, we forgot to mention this. positional argument. It takes 0 positional argument, but we did provided one. So let's again create this one. Okay, so what did it return? Just going through the whole code, it's like first we created one calculator, and then we initialize that calculator with two variables with the name of a and b, and we just have added those numbers and returned this. Now one more thing. Now let's suppose we created this calculator and we wanted to just pass two numbers for the sake of adding these one. Here I will pass 1 and 2. So what does let's check now how does it behaves. So it says that it takes one positional argument, which is the class, the basically the object itself, and but we did passed 3 as the self is like by default it will pass the self, that is the object itself, and then we are passing 1 and 2 as two arguments. So this is how a normal mm, class works in Python. Now coming to a static method. So I will just scroll a bit up, so and just copy this code. Hmm. So now let's suppose we want to create one static method. Now what is a static method? So being precise, a static method is a method which can be executed without the instantiation of the class. So let's suppose we want to execute one method over a class, but we without creating any object from the class. So that's what we call a static method. So to define one static method, we generally this is the best practice we use for Python 3, and it's we define this as static method decorator, and now we will define the method which we want to and define as a static. So now let's suppose we are defining multiply. So as I said, this static method, it works directly on class. And this method can be called without first creating any object from this class. So that means that we don't need to pass any such argument as self, as it is not required here. So we will just pass argument like x and y, and we will return x multiplied by y. So now let's check this. So now create one second calculator, calc2, which is equals to calculator, and we are already providing two arguments for the sake of addition, so I will just create give it the same 10 and 15. So now we can call this method directly add, and it will give us the result of, okay, sorry, I said calc2. Yeah, so it just provided us the result of this summation. I will tweak this one, make it 20. So yeah, so it's now returning 30 as we have provided 10 and 20 as the what we say, the constructor parameters while creating that object. Now if we directly call calc2 dot multiply, So for sure it will pop some error, and it says that it is missing two required positional argument x and y. So what we can do, we can do something like calc2 multiply and provided 3 and 5, and it did return 15. So imagine that one, this add method, this works on this class, and as we are directly implementing these things, like we are returning the summation of both the variables which we took in the construction part. So it didn't require any variable or any parameter to be passed on. But this multiply one, it is a static method, so we can provide direct argument or direct parameters to this multiply method. And so basically in this situation, like here we did calc2 dot multiply 3 and 5, we provided two parameters for this one. Okay, one more thing about a static method, it doesn't needs to be we can basically we can directly call it from the class itself. So let's suppose we want to just multiply two numbers, and we can do so like calculator dot multiply, and we will say like 5 6, and it did return 30. So this a static method, mm, it doesn't needs to be first, it doesn't needs the situation that first we need to create one object, and then we need to call this method upon that object. So we can't call this add method directly. If we try to do so, it will pop one error like calculator dot add. So it will pop an error that it requires one positional argument called self, and this self, it basically means the object which we just created. So this is called oh, not called, so basically this is what we mean when we say the static method. So now just only go through this one, the this static method part. So what we did learn, like it doesn't require any parameters, any. So here in the class method we stated that it will require something like class, so it doesn't require this one. And leave this point, and this the last point, it requires one decorator which is called a static method. And it also uses it's a kind of like the utility method which we directly use, or we can directly use on the class. Now let's go and learn about class method. So class method, yeah. So first, some general information about class method. Class method, it's a method which we directly call on the class and instead of the object. So whenever we create one class in Python, and we want to we want to access the property of the objects, then first it's like we create one object, and then we call the self argument to access that object. Let's go through one example. Let's create one class named person, and we will say that this class requires two arguments, that two parameters, and the first could be let's say name and age, and we will call it like self dot name is equals to name. So whenever we create an object, the name property of the object will refer to this name variable, and we will again call it self dot is equals to is. And let's skip this one. So now we can create a particular person, and we can access their names and is. So we will create the first person, and let's say person 1 is person which have the name of Sati and the age is 25. Nice. And now we can do person1 dot name, and it will say Sati. Person1 dot age, and it will give us 25. So we will learn this class method by having one real case scenario. So most of the time in while walking through the codes, or while walking through the requirements, the input won't come here directly. Like, people won't give you this input in this format. uh, l- uh, like, the name first, and they won't provide you this name splitted away, and then a particular age which is in here. In here it's in number. Here it's one integer. So what I'm trying to say, that instead of providing something like Sati and 25, they might provide you something like this one. Okay, they might provide you something like this one: Sati and a space 25. Yeah, I will hide this one. Yeah. So here it's a kind of like, the both of these arguments are stated clearly, and we can use it directly. But here it's not. It is not stated clearly, and so we need to create one class from this one. And so how we can do so? So we will extend this class class person, and we'll add some class method for this one itself. So now let's add one class method. So for defining one class method, you will have to add this class method decorator. And now let's create this one. So in the situation where they are directly providing us a string which contains both the name and the age, so what we are expected to have, now we can say something like define from name and age. And class method, by practice, or the standard convention, is that we accept the first parameter as class itself, and while creating normal classes, we accept the first parameter as self, which means the object. Okay, so I'm just skipping the previous class person and this one on the same script. Now instead of or in this method, like, we will directly receive one string. So let's suppose the string could be name and name age, name and age. Okay, now what we will do, we will say name and age is equals to name and age, and we will just split this string with what, like, here we are using white space character, so we don't need to provide anything. What this function will do, I will just show you one quick example. So let's suppose we are using this one, and I'm saying name and age is equals to this dot split. What will happen now? If you call name, it will provide you Sati. If you call age, it will provide you 25. So this is simple tuple unpacking. So I will delete, let's not delete this one, just I will extend this one so that it's out of our screen. Yeah, so we are doing name and age. Name and age is equals to name and age is, and we are splitting the string, and we are assigning their values respective to the name variable and the age variable. Now what we will do, we will return the class itself, and we will pass this name and age. So let's see what happens here. So now this is our code. Now let's create one normal uh, one object from this by using the this constructor of init. So we will say person1 is equals to person, and name could be Atul, and age could be 28. And if we try to access person one name, so it's Atul, and we can directly also provide this one person one dot is, and it will pop up like Atul and 28. Now let's create another let's try to create another object using that class method. So now we will say person, and we will call this class method. So we will say from name and is, and this time we will create Shuni and then 25. Okay, sorry for this one. This from name and age method, it just needs one whole string, so we will only provide Ashwini space 25. So what we are expected to have, this class method, it will take this string and it will split those string into two variables, and it will return us uh, basically one object. In this case it will return us one object from this class. So let's create this one. Now let's call person2 name and person2 dot is, so it says Ashwini and 25. So this is this is how we can use class method for tweaking our class. Now let's again go through this one, the class method and a static method one. So we just discussed that this class method, it needs to have one parameter called class. We have that one. This is the standard convention, but you need to have a particular variable for that, for accessing the class. This class method, it can access the state of the class, that mm, uh, how does the class is behaving, and what are those things which are having in that class. And it requires one decorator called class method. And then in the static method part, as we discussed, it doesn't require any such parameters. We directly pass in our variable name. And static method, they don't have any access to the class, as in a static method we were not providing the if you remember here, in a static method we are directly passing these arguments. We are not providing anything as class or as self. So that what basically it means that this static method don't have any access to the class. Well, although we can directly call that method on any object. And so yeah, it's a kind of utility method. And the last one is it requires a static method decorator. So that's what I had today from my side in our Python continuation. Last time we had some discussion around exceptions, and today this is how the class method and a static method works in Python. I will I will keep you posted about like the next topics which I will cover in our live stream over here. So thanks a lot for your time, and Yeah, we will see, I will see you again. Thank you. Bye bye.